Last week I showed you how you can urban sketch when you're really short of time using water resistant pens and maybe doing something in 20-25 minutes. Luckily, we're not always in such a rush, and maybe we've got time to do something a little bit bigger, a little bit more complicated. Maybe we've got an hour that we can sit down and sketch. I wanted to take another Amsterdam scene, pretend that it was a beautiful blue sunny day, so that it was warm to sit by the canal and sketch, and do something a little bit more considered. I'm going to use another of my homemade sketchbooks. This is a ring binder, and if you're interested in making one yourself, because then you can fill it with the papers you love, I'll link to the video. I've got all sorts in here, from watercolour paper, tinted watercolour paper, to some plain cartridge paper. If you're American, you won't know what cartridge paper is. It's just good quality drawing paper, and that's what I'm going to use. So when you're confronted by a complicated scene, you do have to think before you start drawing, and think what attracts you to it, what you want to say. I really love this lamppost, but because it's a photo, it's distorted and coming in. So I know that I probably want to actually move it out, and I quite like playing with perspective a bit. So I'm wondering if this is what I'm focusing at here. I'm wondering if I'm going to move the perspective just a little bit out so it focuses probably around this building. That'll be upright, but this will be slightly out. That lovely lamppost will be slightly out, and I might have to adjust the angles of this bridge, because then it'll pull us in and it'll look like the houses are dancing, and that will give, you know, my sense of excitement to this scene. I'm not going to put people in. I'm just not a great I was going to say I'm not a great fan of people. Maybe true. Not a great fan of people in pictures. I like these trees here. So even though it's blue sky, it's obviously autumn. I'm autumn or winter, judging by no leaves on the trees. But I'm wondering whether actually by putting the trees in, certainly that tree will sort of stop us going off into the distance. And I wonder about bringing this tree over a bit, which means that I won't have to be too worried about what's happening here. If you're not sure, grab a scrap bit of paper and do a quick doodle just to work some of your ideas out. I'm going to get that nice flow of the bridge and put that lamppost in, but at a slight angle, and then I'm going to ignore pretty much the canal or what's going on behind. I mean, there's stuff going on here, but I don't really care about that. When you're urban sketching, whether it's from life or whether you're sketching from a photograph like this, don't have any hesitation about moving things round, putting things in. You're the artist, and it's your painting, it's your sketch, and you can do what you like. Quite nice at this point also just to think about where the darks are, and you know what's exciting and what's a bit intimidating, and just work out what you want to do. I'm going to start going straight in with a pen, and these pens are great because they've got a brush one end for a nice broad mark, and they've got a bullet point the other for a finer mark, but they are water soluble. They'll dissolve in any sort of wash that you put over the top. If you use a pencil, the temptation is always to rub out, be a bit hesitant, etc. Whereas if you're in with a pen, you can't rub it out. If you don't like that line, just put in the line that you do like and worry about the rest later. I'm going to sketch in my main shapes. Those are the three important buildings, and then it gets less important as we sort of come this way, but we also get slightly more angled. I don't want to go too mad with the angle, but I just want to bend it round. We've got this road going away down here. The bridge is absolutely gorgeous, and we'll get a nice sweep there and get that coming over here. We've got, I guess we need to just think about our posts and how those go into the distance as well, and they will start to bend round there. Then we've got over here, we've got the far railings to stop you going into the canals, and they will sort of go like that, getting closer, and they will bend round. Actually, they stop about there, don't they? And now we've got to think about the bridge and how, so the side is going to be bending out that way. The centre one gets fairly straight, and then this will bend round here. So I'm kind of making this up like that. And then we've got, where's our lovely lamppost, is coming up here, somewhere like that. And we need to think, where have we got to around here? I'm going to miss a couple of buildings out because I'm just trying to get the feel of this canal. And then we've got our tree here. Where did we say we quite like the tree centrally? Those are our important buildings. So quite like the tree there, maybe coming above. And then I'm moving a tree somewhere around. No, that's too much. Sort of there-ish. If you want to put more than those big shapes in, say indicate where windows are and so forth, especially if those are important to you, of course you can do that. Just roughly, so that you know what's going on, that you can get enough, I don't know, stories in the buildings or whatever. But with this water soluble pen, you don't need to do a massive amount, because we're going to come in with a waterproof pen and start developing details. This is really instead of pencil. It's really just to make sure it all fits on the page and we know what we're doing before we get overly committed. Now we want to grab a different sort of pen. We want to grab a waterproofing pen and start working, and that's a 0.3mm. These fineliners are great. They come in all different widths, and we can just start working on the drawing, selecting the line we like, not totally following the lines we've already got there, so we're still checking as we go these, and try and keep the lines fairly flowing. What seems to me most important is that we get the size and the spacing to feel like the bollards and so forth are coming towards us. And you know, if we haven't got exactly the right number of these across the bridge, I don't think any Amsterdamer is going to stop us and throw us out of the country because of it. It's just about getting the feel of these bollards. We can refine these marks as we want to go along. I'm just seeing that, say, they get closer together, they're in sort of 4 sections, and the way that they join up leads our eye. It's a beautiful leading line to come towards us. When you're sketching, just be aware that as you start, you're going to be more hesitant. You will loosen up as you go along, and conversely, you'll also get tireder. So it's worth maybe just thinking where you're going to start. Don't start at anything too dramatic until you have got through to that sort of loosened up stage. And if you feel yourself getting tired, well, you know, you could stop, take a break, finish things off as well. As we get further back here, we're going to lose detail because it's further away, and this becomes a lot less important. And it's often at this point that someone will look over your shoulder when it's looking really awful. I've made, because I feel this is a really important part of the composition, I've made it bigger and put it higher up so it's above the line of the houses. You can make that sort of decision, whether it's, you know, you want a tree to break the skyline, or you want something to play a more important role. Let's just have a quick think. What angle would be best for this bit? In the photo you can see it's like that, but I think in terms of my composition it'll be better off like that. Let's talked about the tree. Let's just map that tree in, because that was going to prevent our eye going across, wasn't it? And then let's start on these lovely houses. It's going to look really higgledy-piggledy, but that's absolutely deliberate. And we don't have to, you know, count the windows. You know, are there 5 across there or is it 6? I haven't actually counted. It's not going to make a material difference to the end result of this piece, whether there's one less or one more window. Try and hold your pen relatively loosely if you can. I just felt myself really gripping the pen there. Again, we're just working from the big shapes to the middly shapes, and we'll carry on like that as we develop detail. So I would say that I think it's worth developing your whole sketch to a similar level as you go along, rather than concentrating on one building and getting it finished and then it raining or a van parks in front of you, or whatever happens, that maybe getting it all to the sort of same level of finish is a good idea. Let's just look at this far edge of the bridge and how it sweeps down like that. And then again, I really have emphasised the tilt on these, haven't I? But wow, it's quite fun. I don't always manipulate the perspective, but actually sometimes it's good. And because Amsterdam is such a quirky, lively city, I think it is part of its character, and I think that's why this just seemed the right thing to do to me. There's some sort of tower, church, I guess. More trees and towers, and now I really want to work on this lamp a bit more. The joy of having more time is that you can look more closely and you see more of what's going on. So suddenly, I don't know, you're looking in there and you realise that it's a crown that's topping the lamp. I think think it is. And you can see the light bulb in the lamppost, and you realise how ornate it is and what's going on. Whereas if you just had your 20 minutes, you'd scribble in a lamppost and you wouldn't see what was happening. So at this point we have a decision to be made. Do we want to add some colour now, or do we want to carry on adding detail and working in our pen work? Some of that decision might be how much time you've got to invest in this drawing, might be how warm it is, because if your colour is going to dry really quickly, you might put it on. If it's going to dry really slowly, you might say, actually I'll get all the pen work done and I'll worry about colour when I get back to my hotel, hostel, wherever it is you're staying. If you are worried that you're going to get caught up in too much detail and you want to keep it loose, then potentially you need to sort of manage the way you work and consider whether you want to put colour on now. If your tendency is to colour in your line work, perhaps you need to get colour on early, whereas if that's not an issue for you, you can work in different ways. So the more I'm looking, the more I'm starting to see what's going on in my picture. I'm working out how much of that I want to put in and how much I don't. So just as you would if you were outdoors painting, you're not going to have a huge range of colours. So I think it's a good idea, even when you're doing this sort of work in the studio, to sort of emulate what's going on and think, you know, how you can make your colours work hard for you. Now, this is, say, it's just heavyweight cartridge paper, so I know I can't put a lot of wash on here, but I'm going to let those colours mix and hopefully dance on the paper. There's lovely terracotta roofs. Said I was going to actually put this into leaf, so let's encourage some of that. So I'm really playing with the colours here. I have no concern that the canals in Amsterdam are not yellow. I just want the colours to be fun and to have a feel of the scene, and for me this is such a happy scene that that's the feel that I need to get from this. I'm not trying to stay inside the lines, in fact, you know, very deliberately not. The biggest issue is that this needs to dry, and if it's a cold day and you're sketching outside, that can take quite some time. If it's a warmer day, it'll probably dry before you want it to. So do consider how much water you put onto your painting. Now we can go back in with our tonal brushes, and these are, or brush pens, and these are brilliant because they do not add any further water to your painting. So if you were going out, if you're sketching outside, these are just fab for very quickly adding in tone and shape by using the brush pen end of it. We can start to make some sense out of the chaos of what we've just put on. And I know it's chaotic, and you will look at it and go, oh, what's happening here? Or someone who's looking over your shoulder. But as soon as you start to put in some shadows, then it starts to make sense again, we hope. I can maybe do some of that with the brickwork. We can start to come over here. We can use different shades of the greys. What these pens are also absolutely fabulous for is blocking in windows like that. So just one stroke, maybe two, and we've suddenly started to give eyes to our buildings. Some of this brush to start to give a bit of substance to our trees. Again, we don't want to go too far with this because we don't want to regret and think, oh, I wish I'd done less, because we can always do a little bit more. Now we can come and start doing more line work, and I'll use a thicker one. This is a 0.5 on the nearer, and start to emphasize some of that line work to bring the foreground a little closer. Dip back into our pens if we want to. So that's like that little ledge there. Make some of these darker as well if we want. Just to enjoy playing with the patterns on the paper and seeing where they take you. Of course, we're looking at our subject, but we're also just playing and letting patterns develop and see what takes our fancy. As well as using some of the shading from the greys, maybe we'd like a little bit more variety and we could hatch some of the stones just to make it a little bit more different. So we've got different marks and different tools at our disposal to make our drawing as interesting and characterful as possible. And that'll just add to some of those wonky lines and bleeding lines that we were developing. That's a 0.2 I'm using. And maybe use one of my lighter pens to put in a bit of brickwork there. Get my tree in. Got the hint of stuff behind. Now these are a distance away, so we can't go into every iota of detail, but we can certainly put some in. The all-important hoist that all Dutch houses, well not all Dutch houses, but Amsterdam houses have, to allow you to get furniture up and down, because they're so narrow inside you wouldn't be able to get stuff up and down, so they've all got that hoist on the outside, and some of them used to be warehouses, so that was important too. Where the tree isn't, we've got again these super long windows. That's just obscuring the view there. So that's okay. And then got our bridge in the distance. So we could leave it at this point. It's all developed roughly to the same development. But then we have the choice. Do we want to put another layer of seeing in and another layer of detail? And if we do, then we can come back in at this point and do so. And I think, seeing we've got time, it'd be nice. So I might put some more brickwork. I might come here and just blend some of this. So little lights which I've missed because all these bridges are lit up at night. I actually think those would be nice, so I might go back in with white paint or a Posca marker or something like that, and just do these lovely little light bulbs. So these are all pavias rather than tarmac, so it might be nice to do some of those. And again, just bring a little bit of detail to bring this forward. I just feel there should be some more lines down here, just to imply that something else is going on and the city continues. So I'm using a Posca pen. I hope it is just enough to bring out those bulbs around the bridge. It's not brilliant, but it's going to have to do. And I don't know, I mustn't go too far, but it might be nice to have a few highlights. If you haven't got a white pen, what you could do is use some white gouache and a small brush. Now, you're not going to have this with you when you're out sketching, but I think when you get home you could easily add, and I think that is going to be better, isn't it? And then my final thing, I've just got a red marker as it happens. I could have totally done this with paint. It was just to bring my lamp post forward. I know it's green, but there you go. Actually rather enjoying that red. Just think it adds a little je ne sais quoi. So I've just put a few more highlights. So my very final thing is to bring some yellow into these trees. I don't know, that green wasn't really doing it for me. So I think just doing that will give more of that summery feel that I wanted, and a tiny bit of yellow over here just to balance things up, and I think we're done. I hope you've enjoyed seeing how we've progressed from the simple and fast monochrome urban sketching to one where again we're still trying to absolutely capture the atmosphere and character of the place, but we're getting more detail in and we're making it a more painterly approach. We used water soluble pens instead of pencil to get our line in. We used waterproof pens to get that black line in. Then we've used watercolour to bring colour and life to the sketch, and then we've worked in layers, hatching, outlining, adding a bit of tone until we were happy, and then just right at the end a little bit of marker just to bring things forward. And of course, just the highlights to bring forward those bulbs around the bridge.